and the next one on stage is Jeff Cross. So when I was reading the speaker description of Jeff, it said he has kune pigs. And I was like, huh? It said like guinea pigs spelled wrong. Someone like spelled guinea pigs wrong. I was so confused and excited at the same time because I used to have guinea pigs. I love them. And I asked Carmen, hey Carmen, do you know like Jeff has guinea pigs, right? And I was like, no. There's like normal pigs, big pigs. I was like, oh my God. And I Googled it and those pigs are amazing. And I normally don't ask questions to a speaker, but Jeff, do you have pictures in your presentation?
I just put one picture in because you asked about it. So
Yes.
there's one picture with
Okay,
cheddar.
so you can enjoy the pigs too. And let's give him a warm applause and welcome Jeff. Please do the talking.
Thank you. All right. Oh, we've got a clicker. Okay, it's still trying to identify the keyboard. Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Is there a timer, or do I need to time myself? We'll start it for you. Okay, thanks. There it is. All right, thank you. I'm Jeff Cross. As mentioned, wait a second for the slides to come on the screen. Am I connected okay? Yes. Okay. Oh, there we go. All right, thank you. So I'm going to talk about NX for Angular developers. And Katerina already asked everybody if everyone knows NX, so I won't ask again because everyone knows everything about it. And maybe I don't even need to do the talk if everyone already knows. Is there anyone who's never used NX? There we go. Okay. My job is to convince you to use it, or to at least try it and see some of the things it does, especially for Angular, which is where NX originated. As mentioned, I'm a farmer. I'm a CEO of Narwhal. It's an important distinction. Victor Savkin, you may know. He and I were both on the Angular team. He is my co-founder at Narwhal, but I'm the CEO, so we're not equals in my mind. He's the CTO, which we know is all just a do-nothing job, right? Does nobody know Victor? I'm not, like, he's mean to me too, so it's not me being mean and he doesn't reciprocate it, so. But I am the CEO, so I get to make all the decisions. And I have pigs, chickens, and humans. And here is, oops, wrong button. Here's my favorite pig, Cheddar. He's a kune pig. He's a ginger pig. That's the main reason I was attracted to the breed of kune is because they had ginger kunis with that orange hair. And he's a great pig. They're really smart, really affectionate. He loves to cuddle, and I miss him so much. But I'll see him in a couple days. So let's get back to the content. So what if, let's think about some ideal ways of developing. What if you could do a fresh checkout of your workspace and have your app running in just a few seconds instead of minutes? What if you could look forward to writing E2E tests? Who looks forward to writing E2E tests? Liars. Tony, you're lying. Because you're using NX. Okay, who's not using NX and looks forward to E2E tests? No hands. See, exactly, no hands. And what if your PRs could be validated in CI instantly instead of waiting minutes or hours in some cases? How would that change how your team writes software? What habits would your team develop if things were different? What things could you do better if that was the case? That's where NX comes in. Of course, we have a video of Narwhals behind the logo here, the official site for NX, and the beautiful logo, and it's from Narwhal. I don't remember which slides are auto-changing, so sorry for the transitions. But why use NX? You might say, I already have the Angular CLI, and Angular CLI is great. It's one of the best things about Angular, in my opinion. And you may say, I know NX is all about monorepos, and I don't work in a monorepo. I don't really want a monorepo. I don't know what a monorepo is. I don't want to know. Why should I care about this? Well, NX takes the best parts of Angular Dev Kit and adds modern tools and helps you scale your development, helps you grow as your product grows, as your team grows, as your code base grows. And I'll show how we do that in two parts. The modern tools that we provide that help you, and how NX makes your builds really fast. Starting with the modern tools. So the main tools that we add, there are some other tools that we use as parts of these tools, as parts of NX, but the main ones we expose to you as users that you're able to then use in your workspace are these 5 here: ESLint, Cypress, Jest, Storybook, and Prettier. And everyone, I'm sure, saw Katarina's talk about Storybook earlier, and she hopefully sold you on Storybook and NX because it's the best way to use Storybook. So TSLint is gone. For better or worse, it's gone. Everyone has moved to ESLint, and which I think is a good thing. And we've got a good relationship with the folks working on ESLint. We sponsor the ESLint project, and we've supported it in NX for quite a while since I think they announced the deprecation of TSLint. And so we were ahead of the ball. Everyone using NX got to use the new tools right away. We had support for Angular. And now Angular CLI doesn't ship a linter by default. So you can still add a linter. It's just not part of what's built into Angular CLI. It's not officially supported. And ESLint is the new community standard for TypeScript projects. Our friend James Henry and all these other folks who support the TypeScript ESLint and the Angular ESLint package have helped a lot. James Henry actually works on the ESLint integration in NX. And so thanks to all these people who've made it great for everything, not just Angular. And so we use ESLint to do things that it used to do in Angular CLI, like running the quality checks that were previously Codalizer are now in ESLint. And you can see that video was supposed to play, but did it play? Did it scroll through the, no. It's just a scrolling of all the lint checks that are run by default when you, it did?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing we use ESLint for is to enforce relationships between projects in your NX workspace. And I'll talk more about what a project is in NX. It's conceptually similar to Angular CLI, except projects in NX are more lightweight than they would be in Angular CLI. And we use what we call what's called a tagging system to be able to arbitrarily add tags to your projects and to define how those projects can interact with each other, how they can depend on each other, how they can not depend on each other. So you can have more boundaries between teams. You can make sure experimental things aren't depended on by stable things, or back-end stuff isn't dependent on by front-end if it's not meant to be. Lots of things you can do with this tagging system, and ESLint is the tool that we use to enforce that. And so that's why ESLint is beautiful. We rely on it in NX, and as I mentioned, we're one of the top sponsors of ESLint because it helps NX be such a great tool. And the next tool that's pretty exciting, and we've been really excited about for years since we got wind of it, is Cypress. Who's using Cypress? Cool. So NX frontend apps come with Cypress end-to-end tests by default. So it's our default end-to-end test runner. And it's you can run headless and headed, both the screenshots and videos, watch mode for headless, and code completion thanks to TypeScript. Cypress, one of the most important things about it is it's an actively developed project. They have a great relationship in the community that's using it, a great developer relations team. It's a product that the company, their business is based on the product. And so they pour a lot of investment into making it a great tool, and it's really pleasant to use. It runs much faster than Selenium or WebDriver or anything WebDriver based, and it's more pleasant to write tests with. It's less cumbersome, and there are definitely trade-offs to any technology you choose, whether it be Cypress. Like the browser support isn't as robust in Cypress as it would be with something Selenium based, but the speed and the joy in which you can write tests make it a pretty great tool to write most of your functional testing, even if you still have a suite of something written in WebDriver for that full cross-browser compatibility. So when you generate a new Angular application, the default E2E test runner is Cypress, and you can change that. I think Protractor is still the other option for Angular applications, but by default, we ship with Cypress, and no one's really complained since we did that a couple years ago. At least I haven't heard the complaints, but maybe they have complained. So, and we can see in our NX workspace, we have our apps in our NX workspace in the apps folder. So we have this NGBelieve app, and right next to it, because we just generated it with Cypress as a test runner, we have the NGBelieve E2E app, which has all the configuration and has the boilerplate code for being able to test to write your Cypress specs from there. We've even got the page object set up for you, so you can just start writing tests without setting anything up. So it's the same great experience that you get from Angular CLI and the things that it does provide. We just provide more tools out of the box to make it easy and a little bit of opinionated ideas for you to get running and up and running quickly. Next, Jest. Along the same veins as Cypress, this is an actively developed project. It's kind of the default, the de facto runner in the React community. It's got a thriving community. There are lots of tools that work with it. And we've made it the default unit test runner for front-end apps. I was a big fan of Karma for a long time. It just hasn't been maintained. Maybe it's still worked on, but not maintained to the same level that you would expect. The experience hasn't really kept up. It did really cool things for what it did at the time, but Jest has really taken over as the more popular runner. It doesn't do things the same way as Karma, but some of the design decisions it makes, like running in Node, make it where you can run tests really fast. Again, even if all your tests aren't written in this, and you do have some cross-browser tests that are written or run outside of Jest, for the majority of your tests, Jest is a much more pleasant, fast, and fun way to write unit tests. And so by default, again, if you generate an Angular application, you can see by default, this is NX Console, by the way. If you're not using NX Console in VS Code, you should install it. It works with Angular CLI and NX. So it's a UI for the tool so that you can not have to remember all the flags. You can see what commands are available, what plugins, schematics, generators, executors, builders are available in your workspace. So even if I can't convince you that NX is a great tool, you should download NX Console or check, and maybe you already have it installed, and give it a try. But we get our Jest test plopped right in the project with us. If you look at it, it doesn't look much different from Karma. The syntax is still, I think this is still the Jasmine syntax, even if Jasmine isn't the actual runner. But you still got the test bed. We scaffold the test for you, and it just works. And finally, Storybook. I'm not going to talk about this because Katarina already talked all about it. If you're watching a recording of this, you can just watch Katarina's talk on YouTube from NGBE. But we develop, Storybook lets you develop components in isolation and communicate, show those components to other people who aren't touching the code and running demo apps. You don't even have to create a demo app to harness your components that you may have had to do before to let people see components out of context instead of having to navigate through a staging application or something like that. Storybook makes component development for design systems or just any component in your application that you want to start by developing in isolation and playing around with. It makes it so much more fun and pleasant, removes the tedium from that process. And adding Cypress tests is really easy. And a lot of people are now just writing their E2E tests to work with their Storybook stories instead of inside the application having to navigate to the view where they are and testing them that way. And you can serve, watch, and build. Like I said, Katarina's talk, isn't that cool, real time? This is from this morning, and it made it into my presentation. That's the magic of technology. But watch her talk, and she goes into a lot more detail, and it's great. And finally, we have Prettier. And Prettier, what it does is it makes it where you don't have to think about formatting your code. It provides checks to see if the code being committed passes formatting, if it meets the formatting standards, or can update your code for you if it's not formatted exactly right. And of course, your IDE can have Prettier installed, which will do that as you're saving files, and you never have to worry about committing something that hasn't been formatted. We helped work on this project. James Henry, again, who works with Narwhal, helped get this integrated and incorporated the feature to actually be able to look at deltas of commits to see what files have been touched in the pull request, and then only check the formatting of those files, and I think down to the lines of code, if I'm not mistaken. so that you're not formatting things that have nothing to do with the change you're making your pull request reviews more difficult. So it sets it up. That's one thing you should never have to argue about or think about is formatting. You want good formatting. It shouldn't be something that takes up your headspace. So just trust Prettier and call it a day. Work on more interesting things. So those are modern tools, but there's one bonus, and this is something relatively new and something we're working a lot on right now, and I'm sure the next year is something going to be a big focus for us, which is micro frontends for Angular applications. So micro frontends is kind of a new and already overloaded term. It means a lot of different things to different people. When we talk about it, the main use case that usually comes up is the ability to have a portal-like application that you can redeploy parts of it in a shared JavaScript runtime without having to redeploy the whole application or the whole suite of applications together. So some teams just really need to be able to deploy their app or their component or some slice of their company's app independently because teams have different priorities, different timelines. Maybe they need to fix something that other teams aren't ready to release, but they need to release something. Micro frontends can be a good solution. There's a lot of nuance that we won't get into here, but there are legitimate use cases, and we want to make it easy to support that. So we've recently added this to take advantage of Webpack Module Federation, which makes it much easier to be able to have a shared JavaScript runtime, but have pieces of that bundle deployed independently. And these are the two commands you run to create there's two types. There's the portal, which is like the host of micro frontends, and then there's the remote, which is itself a micro frontend. This is, you generate apps, and then you run these commands to turn those apps into this kind of micro frontend architecture. We've been creating some good documentation and more tooling to support this use case even better. So if this is something your team is looking at, definitely keep an eye on it and try it out. Let us know what you think. Could I have a water? Is there water? I'll just grab this one. Okay, so that's the modern tooling. That's when you're building apps, that's what you're dealing with day to day. You're generating new components. There's a lot more to it than we could cover right now. But it takes the best parts of Angular Dev Kit. We still use Angular Dev Kit for generating components and things, and the improvements they make. We use their builders too, and so the improvements they keep making, we get to take advantage of that just with the other utilities that we provide out of the box, much of which is in how we make builds fast. So the building blocks of an NX workspace are projects. So in a typical NX workspace, you'll have one or many apps, and then you break those apps into discrete projects that compose that app. And actually, an app in an NX workspace is really lightweight. We encourage it to be really lightweight. Its job is only to import, bootstrap, and configure your application. It shouldn't have much code, much logic actually inside the workspace. It just has enough to put everything together, which enables a lot of interesting use cases of composing libraries and apps in different ways. So here's an example of what an NX workspace could look like, but in reality, NX workspaces have tens of libraries or hundreds of libraries in some cases because libraries are so lightweight, so free and cheap, and easy to create and not much overhead to have. And then we could have a couple of utility libraries in addition to those feature libraries. But one of the interesting things we do with this knowledge of your projects is we look at when you touch one project, in this case the new ticket library, when you touch that, in a naive use case, if you had all these projects, your CI environment would probably retest everything, rebuild everything. It wouldn't know anything about your project. And your build time would look like this. It's a function of what projects are being built and how long each of those projects takes to be built, if we just focus on building the projects right now. Which, if you're a team that is expecting to grow, your code base is going to grow, you don't want to think about this just growing as your code base grows. That wouldn't be fun for anybody. But NX is smart because it understands the relationships of dependencies in your projects, so it can see if I touch the new ticket project, what would be affected by that change? And so in this case, because support tickets depends on new ticket and the customer app depends on support tickets, they're both transitively or directly and transitively affected by that change. They could break, there might be changed behavior, so we should rebuild and retest only what's affected. And NX makes that easy with our affected command. So now in this case, we only had 3 projects that needed to be built. Our CI time is now just a matter of adding up those 3 projects. And that's the first line of defense to make builds faster and NX. So you can see it compared side by side. Don't mind the numbers, they're arbitrary. This is just to illustrate. But NX also provides the ability, it's always provided the ability to parallelize your tasks because you can build things independently, and NX knows how to build things in order if need to be. But you can distribute your tasks as well with NX Cloud and the new distributed task execution feature. And so NX takes its knowledge of how your workspace is organized, how long each of your tasks take to run, and then uses that to, and it knows the order in which the projects need to be built, and then uses that to say however many agents you can provide, however many runners you can provide to NX, it will spread the load across those in the most optimal way. So it spreads them based on their timings, based on the order and these things, so that your CI time should be as long as your longest parallel task. And with incremental builds, you can actually make it where projects can be built before and packaged, or not necessarily packaged, but like the binaries can be built of the design system and validators before they're consumed by the new ticket library, in which case you can have cache hits. I think I reordered the cache stuff. So, but one of the things NX does is it caches computation artifacts locally so that it can replay caches if it determines that it's safe to take an already computed computation result and replay the standard out and the files out from that task. And so incremental builds are one more way that you can have partial cache hits even if something that depends on those projects needs to be rebuilt. And so that works locally, but what if we connected your developer machines together and your CI environment together? And that's where NX Cloud comes in. This is something we've been working on really hard the past year. I know I'm out of time, so I'll wrap up real quick. If I can get the arrow to work. Oh, that's a slow fade. And so when we add NX Cloud, you can actually share a cache between all your environments. NX still uses its intelligence to know when it's safe to reuse a cache or when it needs to run a task fresh. But with all these optimizations applied together, with your local cache, you're binning your tasks, you're only building what's affected, and with partial hits and incremental builds, and distributing the cache, you get to CI times that can be, on average, much better. And even in your worst case CI times where everything needs to be rebuilt, there are often cache hits there that can still be reused, so the time is still much lower than it would be without any kind of optimizations. We often see 10x build performance in CI for NX workspaces just by adding NX Cloud. It depends on so many things, so it's hard to say what a typical number is, but just the ability to intelligently run your task in parallel and then the cache makes it so much better. There's a lot more to NX Cloud, and a lot of these features are free. We do have, like, you can pay for more cache hit time, or caches and distributed task execution time. But we do have things like the NX console is part of NX, and we have the GitHub integration that posts information and detailed analytics back to your pull requests. So you can analyze runs in a lot of detail and understand everything that's going on. You can quickly drill down to problems, quickly reproduce your CI jobs locally if you want to look into something. And that all just, and then of course NX Cloud, the Visual Studio integration. There's also a community WebStorm plugin, but we support the VS Code plugin. We have a rich plugin ecosystem, lots of community plugins. We support React, Node, more, and it's really easy to bring any technology into an NX workspace with some of the plugins we provide out of the box. You can use whatever way you're already building things. Modern tools, fast builds, happy developers. And there's, sorry, we missed the Katarina call out. No, let's go to the animation again. Yeah, Katarina helped with this talk, so thank you, Katarina. And this is us in Berlin 2 years ago. And that's it. Please go to nx.dev, check it out. We'd love to hear from you. If you're trying it out, there's a great community Slack. We're really active there, and would love to hear what you think. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.